thirds and sixths today. This lesson is basically kind of a way that you can map out how to get through all the thirds and sixths on a ukulele in the key of F and then in the key of C. We can do it in lots of other keys, obviously, but if you map it first in a couple keys that you're used to, these patterns will be a lot more useful to you. Basically, I've got it so that we start on string 1 and 2, and these are going to be thirds going up in F, just in harmony, just like you were singing with a friend. And the pattern itself goes all the way up the neck. But that might be a little much to start with. I would suggest maybe just going to the 5th fret, back and forth, and get a feel for that before you go on to the next one. There are only 6 possible patterns you can do if you want to play thirds and sixths on the ukulele. That would be these 2 strings, strings 2 and 4, 1 and 3, the middle ones, 3 and 4, and then the outer ones too. Each of them has their own separate pattern, but they're easy to learn if you go really slow. And let's just take a look at them, and then you can go off and practice on your own, and we'll talk about a little bit about how to use them musically at the end too. But here's example 2, which has strings 2 and 4. These are exactly the same pitches as strings 1 and 2. This is because of the high G in this case. If you play a low G, you'll get a sixth on that, but it'll still sound just fine for the harmony. Let's take example 3 now. That's the inner strings, 2 and 3. Once again, you can follow them all the way up. To get used to the harmony, but keep playing that F. Keep playing that 1 chord so you can really hear what key you're in. Okay, let's go on to example 4, which is going to be strings 1 and 3. We start open. Those are 6. They're a little further apart than the thirds, but still give you the same harmony. Once again, you can follow those up further, and each time you go, you get a little further. What I do is combine these. So here's an F chord, make a little melody, so you're not just playing the shapes. You really enjoy the sound of them. You can stay on the same chord, or you can even take an F chord, and let's go to a B flat this time. Oops. Now back to the F. I'm going to the C. So that's a really good way to practice through these, is give a little bit of music to yourself so you're not just getting bored and getting lost on the frets. Let's go to example 5. This one, with the reentrant, is going to feel a little strange because this note is actually higher than the other one. That might not be all that useful sometimes, but it can be when you're playing a melody. If you want an open string on the other one, there's all sorts of cool ways you can use that. So as you learn all these, there'll be a musical thing that you can use them for, but you might not know what it is yet. So just get through and go on to the next example until you feel kind of comfortable with them. The next example for us here is going to be example 6. This is the one that's a little different because it's the outside strings, and so the pattern itself kind of goes backwards. It's going to be, they're spread apart this way instead of the other way. But it has the same sound again. If you're using a low G, that would be, once again, a different interval, but it would still work. Okay? So that's kind of how to go through it. Once you get to the C part, everything everything changes just by one note, because B flat and F and C has no flats at all. So here's an example of the first part in C. It's going to go. Same exact thing, except that some of these notes have changed, okay? So I would suggest learning each string and then grounding it with a chord, and then learning the next string, grounding it with a chord, going up and down, maybe to the 5th fret, and when you get really crazy, you can get all the way up and down and really get a feel for these patterns, okay? It's a little nebulous when you start working at first, but there is a musical example that will ground you beautifully in the end. If that's all you learn at the end of the day, that was pretty cool. So this is basically like a library of how to study thirds and sixths. So go slow and take a little bite each time and enjoy your lesson.